Talking Trees with Lily and Jad. Welcome to this week's recap. On Monday, we presented a profile of Dr. Andrew Hirons, an expert in arboriculture. Tuesday's study examined the forces acting on anchor points during SRT ascents. Wednesday, we explored the use and optimization of compost tea in agriculture. Thursday, we reviewed a book addressing building damage caused by tree roots. Friday's session focused on the Singapore City Biodiversity Index, and Saturday's articles investigated bacterial disease in horse chestnut trees caused by Pseudomonas syringae.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. This week we're trying something a little different. We're going to be diving into last week's Talking Trees episodes. Yeah, and we're going to be focusing on those really choice nuggets of information that we think are really relevant for you as professional arborists.
Okay, love it.
Yeah.
So like a deep dive within a deep dive?
Exactly, yeah.
Deep dive.
Yeah.
All right, I'm ready when you are.
Okay, so why don't we just jump right in and start with Monday's episode.
Yeah.
Talking Trees had Dr. Andrew Hirons on.
Oh, yeah, I know Dr. Hirons.
He is a senior lecturer in arboriculture.
He's great. A senior lecturer. But he also has a ton of practical experience.
Yep.
Like, he's not just an academic,
Right.
He's out there in the field doing the work, and he's publishing a lot of research on urban forest resilience.
Yeah, he even wrote like a whole guide for choosing trees for green infrastructure projects.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
It is, yeah.
That's a big deal.
It is. And I was thinking about that. Like, one of the biggest challenges that I face as an arborist is choosing the right tree, for a tricky urban spot. You've got limited space, you've got compacted soil, you might have pollution.
Oh, absolutely.
So, all these factors come into play. And Dr. Hirons' research is really all about figuring out how we can use a tree's natural, strengths to help it thrive in those conditions.
Right. So it's almost like matching the tree's like inherent resilience to the challenges of the site.
Exactly.
That's fascinating to me. I like that. Like a matchmaking service for trees and cities.
Right.
Okay. What's next?
Okay. So Tuesday's episode got a little bit more technical. They were talking about the forces that are at play when you're climbing with single rope technique.
Single rope technique.
SRT.
Oh, yeah. Okay. SRT. Yeah, that can be tricky for sure.
Yeah. And they actually did an analysis of how different factors like pulleys and rope friction can affect the load distribution on your anchors.
Wow. And that's important when you're talking about safety, right?
Yeah, it is.
When you're up there, you're literally hanging in the balance.
Right. Yeah. And what they found was that the rope friction actually reduces the load on the upper anchor.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. But using a pulley can increase it.
Oh, wow. So it really makes you think about your gear choices.
It does. Yeah.
And the rope itself, They were saying that like the elasticity of the rope or the lack of it can have a huge impact on the forces you experience during a fall.
Yeah. That's something to consider.
Definitely. Okay, so what about Wednesday? What did they talk about on Wednesday?
Wednesday, they were talking about compost tea.
Compost tea. Now, is that something that arborists should care about? I thought that was more of a home gardening kind of thing.
Yeah, I know what you're thinking, but they actually presented some research that's really relevant to what we do.
Interesting. Okay, like what?
So the first study that they looked at was how compost tea can actually help potatoes grow stronger and be more resistant to disease. And they were testing different doses and brewing methods to figure out like what works best. And then the second study that they looked at was focused on making compost tea even more potent.
Oh, wow. Even better.
Yeah, in terms of the essential nutrients that it provides, like nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium.
Right. And that's where I see the connection for arborists. We're always trying to improve soil health.
Exactly.
So imagine using compost tea to give a boost to some of those struggling street trees that we see, or even to help new plantings get established.
Yeah, it's like giving the soil a probiotic smoothie.
I love that analogy. I'm going to use that.
Yeah.
Okay, so compost tea is on my radar now. What else did they talk about?
Thursday, they tackled a problem that I think keeps a lot of arborists up at night.
Oh, no. What is it?
Tree roots damaging buildings.
Ugh, tell me about it. I feel like I'm always getting calls about that.
Yeah.
It's a big issue.
Yeah, and they actually did a deep dive into this classic resource. It's a book called Tree Roots in Buildings.
Okay, I think I've heard of that one.
Yeah, it's packed with information on different tree species and how their root systems can impact structures. And what they emphasized was that a lot of the insights from this book come from actual real-world data from a massive tree root survey.
Oh, wow. So it's not just theory.
No.
It's actually based on real observations.
Exactly.
That's good to know. That makes it way more valuable.
Right. And the other thing that I really liked about this book was that it goes beyond just identifying the problem. It actually offers some practical recommendations for, prevention and management.
Okay, so it's useful for arborists who are dealing with those kinds of situations.
Yeah, you're dealing with trees in tight urban spaces.
Yeah.
Which, let's face it,
We all are.
pretty much all of us are these days. Then this book sounds like a must-read.
Definitely added to my reading list. Okay, so we've got matchmaking trees, compost tea, and a book recommendation. I'm liking this deep dive.
All right, so Friday was International Day of Forests.
Oh, yeah.
And Talking Trees, celebrated by exploring the Singapore Biodiversity Index.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, so this is a tool that cities can use to track their progress on conserving biodiversity.
Huh.
And it looks at everything from native species to ecosystem services and how biodiversity is actually managed.
So it's like a comprehensive assessment tool.
It is, and
Wow.
it includes 28 different indicators.
28? Wow.
They really went all out with this.
They did, and they even provide detailed instructions on how to calculate each indicator and where to find the data.
So it's not just a theoretical framework, it's actually a practical guide for cities.
Right.
That's really cool. I mean, it's like a roadmap for building a more biodiverse and resilient urban environment.
It is, and it makes you wonder if something like this could be adapted for, other cities.
Absolutely.
Maybe even your own city. It could be a powerful tool for advocating for the value of trees.
Right, and making sure that they're included in any urban planning strategy.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm sold. I'm going to have to check out that Singapore Biodiversity Index.
All right, so last but not least, Saturday's episode took us into the world of tree diseases.
Oh, scary.
I know. And specifically, they were looking at Pseudomonas syringae. Okay, Pseudomonas syringae, I've heard of that one.
Yeah.
It can be a real problem.
It can. And they focused on bleeding canker disease in horse chestnut trees,
Right.
which is caused by a particularly nasty strain of Pseudomonas syringae.
Okay, and they looked at research from different countries, right?
Yeah, they highlighted 3 different research articles, and each one was from a different country.
Okay, which ones?
So the first one reported the bacterium's first occurrence in the Czech Republic.
Oh, wow, so it's spreading.
Yeah. The second article reported its first occurrence in Germany.
So it's moving across Europe.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then the third article was from the UK, and it really dug deep into the infectious biology of the disease and how it spreads.
Wow, so they're really getting down to the nitty-gritty of this thing.
They are. And they were using some pretty high-tech methods to identify the pathogen, like gene sequencing.
Gene sequencing.
Wow.
I know.
That's serious stuff.
It is. It's
Yeah.
not your grandfather's tree diagnosis anymore. Definitely not. So this isn't just about horse chestnuts then, right? This is about staying ahead of the curve on all these emerging tree diseases.
Right. We need to be able to identify them quickly and effectively to protect our urban forests.
Absolutely. I mean, early detection is key to preventing outbreaks.
Exactly.
Okay, well, that was a whirlwind tour of just the first 6 episodes of Talking Trees.
I know. Can you believe how much they covered in just 1 week?
It's amazing.
Well, that brings us to the end of our Talking Trees marathon.
What a journey. It's amazing how much we've learned in just a few short episodes.
I know, right? From the technical aspects of tree care, to the artistic inspiration we can find in trees, to the crucial role that community plays in protecting our urban forests.
It's been a truly holistic exploration of the world of arboriculture.
It has. So to all you arborists out there, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep sharing your passion for trees with the world.
We'll be back next week with another deep dive into a fascinating topic. Until then, happy tree care, everyone.
Thank you for joining this week's recap. Today we reviewed profiles and studies spanning arboriculture and urban forestry, from Dr. Andrew Hirons' insights and SRT anchoring forces to compost tea optimization, tree root impacts on buildings, the Singapore City Biodiversity Index, and bacterial disease in horse chestnut trees. We appreciate your attention and look forward to next week's update.